Hi. It's a long way to become an Olympic champion. It requires many years of very hard training, a strong personal discipline, as well as talent, and of course a little bit of luck. This success starts in your own small judo club. Here you learn all the techniques which you will complete later perfectly in competition. In this video I will show my most successful techniques, throws and grips in Tachiwaza and Newaza. They helped me to achieve all my great triumphs, to win the world and Olympic titles. Though, have fun with Olympic judo.
Udo Quolmos has hardly ever been beaten on the ground. His favourite Newaza techniques are strangles, and our first two examples are a kurere jimi and kata hajime. Notice how quick transfers into the Newaza situation. This first example is from a left-handed seoi-nage attack. His left hand is already in position for the strangle. As he rolls, he catches his opponent's right arm and applies the strangle. His left hand tightens as he rolls, and he takes his opponent's shoulder above his head. This is the secret part of the technique that you don't normally see because they're face down. Notice how he uses his right arm to feed the jacket tightly round the neck. This first contest example is against Niangagwa of Mongolia in the 1997 World Masters. As he rolls his opponent, he takes the arm above the head to apply the strangle. His right leg already in position. Notice how as soon as he rolls, the arm goes above the head. Going over the top to get any leverage with it. At this stage, Karabetta pulls the shoulder in, looks up to the referee for the mate. This example of the strangle is what Udo was trying to achieve against Karabetta in that European final. Notice how he brings the knee up and then over the top of the arm to break the grip, and then applies the strangle. Watch again how he feeds the hand through, moves his opponent onto his side to take the leg out, and then sits back, takes his leg over the top of his opponent's hand and snaps the grip off. In this competition example against Lee of Taipei, Udo easily gets on top of his opponent and starts to go for the strangle. This fine example shows how he feeds the hand through and looks to turn his opponent onto his side, and then takes the leg over the top to snap the grip off and apply pressure downwards to put the strangle on. Notice how he feeds through with the hand, and then he rolls his opponent onto his side in order to take his leg out. At this stage, Udo's strangle hand is being gripped by Lee in order to try and relieve the pressure. This is when he takes the leg over the top to apply pressure downwards to snap the grip off and get the leverage to apply the strangle. Udo's koshi-jimi is a rapid transition attack. Notice how, with his left hand already on, from a left-handed attack, straight away flattens his opponent out and applies the strangle. Because he's already got his left grip on the lapel, as his opponent starts to turn in, it already starts to tighten. Now he goes underneath the arm, flattens his opponent, and pushes his hips forward to apply the strangle. The danger to be avoided is putting the arm too far through and being arm rolled. In this case, he goes underneath the armpit, and then flattens his opponent by pushing his hips forwards and applies the strangle. Like all great fighters, Udo develops his own techniques. This particular example is one that he developed to counteract the defense to his original strangle. Notice how he pushes the right arm forward, underneath the gap, round the neck, applies the strangle by placing his shoulder against the arm and then squeezing it against the side of the neck. Notice he squirms the arm through, drops his neck, and his shoulder then drops against his partner's shoulder, and the wrist falls against the side of his opponent's neck. He then grips his own hand and then throws his shoulder into his opponent's armpit to apply the strangle. And my goodness, doesn't it hurt? From this angle, you can see how he flattens out to throw his shoulder in under the armpit and then squeezes to apply the strangle. Here we see it, the twist of the wrist there as it goes against the side of his opponent's neck. If the strangle fails, then Udo has a neat switch into the Osei Kombi. He squeezes the neck, takes the leg out, and then keeps the tight grip for the hold down. Notice how he grabs his own hand again, pulls against the side of the neck. The reason for the strangle not being applied properly is that his opponent manages to keep the arm down. So then Udo takes the leg out and holds his opponent down. The drive into the head is absolutely imperative in order to stop his opponent from rolling out. This combination sequence shows the whole three techniques put together. Notice how he rolls his opponent, tries for the Ikuriari Jimmy, fails to get it, so he pushes his arm through to try and apply his own strangle. That fails, so he takes his leg out for the hold down. What's interesting is to watch how fluid Udo is when one technique fails. Here he is, trying to apply the strangle. The strangle fails, so straight away he moves into second attack. The arm goes round the neck, drops his shoulder to apply the strangle. As soon as that fails, it's onto the third technique. He takes his leg out, pushes his shoulder against his opponent's, and then he's got the hold down. Another variation, if the strangle should fail, is Jujigatame. Here, notice he hooks into the arm, catches hold of his own lapel, and brings his leg up and around his opponent's head and falls back, applying pressure into the joint, and then straightening the arm for the submission. His right leg is already in between his opponent's legs, so he has to roll his opponent forwards onto his side in order to take his left leg out, brings it up around his opponent's head, and uses his left hand to stop his opponent from grabbing his leg in order to stop the leg coming over the top of the head. He then falls back onto his back, applies pressure to the joint, and then eventually straightens the arm for the ippon. Notice from close-up situation how he goes through his opponent's arm, grips his own lapel. By gripping his own lapel and by coming up over his opponent, he then locks into the joint. He stops the hand from taking his leg and then falls back, goes to the top of the arm and straightens the arm. The quarter-final of the Olympic Games against Almeida of Portugal. Here we see he's trying very hard for the strangle. Almeida, very, very tight, knows what's coming, so he switches onto the arm, falls back. Just notice how cool he looks. As he catches his own lapel, then leans back to apply the pressure. The arm lock not quite on, has to adjust the hips. There it is. This particular variation of the step-over Jujigatame roll is one that Udo did very successfully in the 1997 World Masters against his Japanese opponent. What happens is his opponent drops down into the Seoinage position, ready to spring back up. He steps to the side and then takes his left leg over the top, his opponent's arm already straight because he has hold of the lapel, and then catches the leg, swings it around his head, and then applies the arm lock to an already straight arm. His opponent does a low drop. As soon as he's on his back, thinks he can drive upwards, but then finds his arm straightened, and then Udo pulls the leg round and applies the arm lock to the straight arm. Here we have a close-up with Udo going to the top of his opponent's wrist, grabbing his own lapel and using his legs to push out and leaning back to break the grip. And here he is against Iwakawa in the World Masters. He's done the turn, the arm straight. Now he has to adjust his hips, changes his hip position, and there it is, Ippon squat. For the leg trap escape into the Osai Komi, we see Udo taking his left hand underneath his opponent's head and then feeding the jacket, his opponent's jacket, into his left hand, and then taking his leg out and holding his opponent down. Watch how he puts the pressure on the head, feeds his left hand through, feeds the jacket around his opponent's armpit, feeds it into his left hand, then takes his head underneath into the armpit, pushes on the leg, takes the leg out. He then spreads his legs and holds his opponent on his back. This competition example was against Fagan of Australia. Watch how he feeds the jacket through, really tight on the head, and then goes to the leg in order to take the leg out. And look how tight that hold is. Notice that this is done on the other side to the one in the demonstration. Like all top fighters, he can do it both left and right. Here we see again, feeds the arm underneath his armpit and then looks for the jacket. He wants to tie off that shoulder first before he even thinks about taking the leg out. He catches the lapel and then brings the other leg up, pushes against his opponent's leg, pushes with the arm, and out comes the leg. He then pushes the knee onto the floor, takes the leg out and into the hole. This leg trap escape into the Osai Komi is very unusual because he overbalances and comes off the other side. Notice how he takes hold of his own lapel this time, brings the leg through the gap and into the reverse hold down. Once again, traps the arm right underneath the armpit, only this time he takes his own lapel. He then swings his momentum forwards and pulls his leg right the way through the gap towards the floor. He then pushes the leg out. He's still got control of the arm and then grabs the leg for stability. Here's a close-up. Notice how he feeds the jacket through, right underneath the armpit. Very tight on the head, leans forward, brings his leg through the gap, pushes out, and then splits his legs for stability. This particular turn that Udo does into the Osai Komi is if he hasn't actually got his right leg hooked round his opponent's legs. takes his right arm over his opponent's shoulder and then lifts him off into the hold down. He starts off by gripping both the sleeves, rolls his opponent over. Remember, he's probably still looking for the strangle, but then changes. He goes over the shoulder to grip the belt. He has to take his bottom leg out. As soon as his leg comes out, he releases the belt, goes round his opponent's shoulder, and then into the hold down. This is a subtle variation of this particular move. Grips the belt, only this time uses his right leg to kick his opponent off and keeps hold of the belt all the way through the move. Pushes his way through the arm, grabs the belt, then lifts and kicks off with his right leg and keeps hold with the belt in order to keep control of his opponent's shoulder. Udo is surely a man to be avoided on the ground. Udo is a left-handed fighter, so most examples you see here in Tachiwaza will be performed on the left. Udo's favourite grip is a left-handed lapel grip and a right sleeve grip, sometimes on top and sometimes underneath the sleeve. The battle for Udo against the right-handed fighter is to get the inside lapel grip and to dominate the sleeve. This can be done either on top or underneath the sleeve, but not at the end. If he manages to get his favourite grip, then he manages to dominate all of the inside space. He feeds the lapel with his right hand into his left hand, and then by dominating the lapel, takes all the power out of his opponent's right hand. Here you see Udo controlling Travik of Norway with the inside grip. Travik makes a poor attack, and Udo straight on top for the Olsai Komi. Against Almeida in the quarter-final of the Olympic Games, once again Udo dominates the inside grip, able to do almost whatever he wants when he wants to dominate. Against an extreme right-hander, it can sometimes be very awkward to get the inside grip, especially when they push the right arm forwards. This is when he takes the outside grip and uses it to effect with his ashiwaza. Can't get the inside grip, changes it, changes the game, tries to turn his opponent in a circular movement, perfect for the ashiwaza. Against Demirel, Turkey, in the 1995 World Championships, Udo is forced to take the outside grip, but uses it to his advantage. We can see here, he's afraid to go inside to get the lapel, in case he gets picked up by the very strong Turk. This forces him to go to the outside, and now gives him an opportunity for his ashiwaza, takes him cleanly onto his back. Against left-handed fighters, Udo takes a different style grip with a normal lapel grip and a very high armpit sleeve grip. He does this to take all of the power out of his opponent's lapel grip. This then gives him the chance to attack strongly against his opponent's strong leg. Udo feels that with this particular grip, it gives him much more power against his partner's left side. Against Mark Preston here, a strong left-hander himself, Udo gets his grip, but so does Mark Preston. The difference, though, is that Udo dominates and is able to attack. The left against right one-handed situation is one that Udo really prefers. It gives him a chance to move and to attack. He dominates the inside grip, Doesn't matter about the sleeve. And then he attacks first Kouchi and then the second stab to take his opponent down. It's interesting that this particular tactic was agreed by Udo and Dietmar Hopke, his coach, to combat against the very strong Japanese fighter, Nakamura. Feeds the grip, gets the lapel grip, and then moves all the time, attempting his Kouchi-gari, attacking all the time through the contest. There he is attacking with the Ashiwaza. The idea never to let his opponent get two hands on. This, the final of the 1995 World Championships, and Udo Kormos stealing it with one-handed judo, what he calls negative judo, but positive tactics. Ashiwaza is one of Udo's strongest weapons. This first example against the left fighter is Diashibarai, attacking one-footed as his opponent moves back. Pulls his opponent towards him, gets the reaction, and then sweeps one of his opponent's feet onto his back. He then follows through straight into Newaza. This second example almost turns into a Kuriashi Harai. Once again, he gets a reaction from his opponent, pulls downwards and then follows him back, this time sweeping both legs away. In the final of the 1990 European Championships against Carabetta of France, there was a brilliant reactionary Ashiwaza by Udo to take his opponent almost, but not quite onto his back. Carabetta keeps the leg back. Udo has to change the angle of approach. Left hand comes high over the top. During the confusion, catches the foot. Beautiful sweep. And this one against Kosminin of the former Soviet Union. Forces him onto his back. Beautiful coordination. You can quite clearly differentiate between Diashi and a Kuriashi Harai in this particular variation against a right-handed fighter. Foot quite clearly forward. And coordinated sweep there to take him onto his back. Again, pulling down on his opponent, trying to make him step forward. As he steps forward, before he puts his weight on the leg, he sweeps it away. Against Brunei of France in the 1993 World Championships, not quite so sweet. Catches the foot first of all when it's on the floor, hits it the first time. When he lifts it, he hops it through. This time against an extreme right-handed player. Right leg quite clearly forward, looking for the big technique to the right. Sweeps the leg away before they get a chance to hit. Remember, Udo has to hit the leg in order to stop the attack. Sometimes with small techniques, small Ashiwaza, sometimes with the big one. Prime example for this is Born of Switzerland. Extreme right-handed stance. Fantastic Uchimata. And there we see Udo sweeping the leg. Before he starts with the Uchimata, he gets a score. Here he is again. Again, before he starts the attack, hooks the leg, chips away at it, stops his opponent from starting his technique. And again, another score. Same technique with Demirel of Turkey, only this time we're showing the Ashiwaza. Takes the leg away before his opponent, gets a chance to start his technique. Udo's favourite technique is Taetoshi. You'll notice the strong upright position that Udo gets as he comes in for his technique. Lots of upper body contact, strong leg movement, and a really strong drive. Udo trains for this technique with his uchikomi by pulling his opponent towards him, turning, twisting, making chest contact every time, then takes it one step further with the rotation, and then the finish. Here we see slow motion, strong pulling action to get his chest contact, then the rotation, one step further, then the rotation, and then the really strong leg movement to finish the technique off. Against Latz in the 1991 World Championships, didn't quite get enough body contact, was leaning back, and therefore didn't get the drive off the legs and not the finish. Udo's preferred Taetoshi attack is with a feint for the Osotogari. Notice how he brings the leg up for the Osoto, his opponent steps back, and then there's a second feint. Here's the first one, big Osoto, partner steps back. He comes back, then there's just a small dig in for the second one, gets a small reaction, perfectly timed for the Taetoshi. Here's a good example of this. Watch for the small feint, and then there it is, semi-final of the Olympic Games, and he's in the final. This time, against Philipp Latz, he really did get it right. The feint, leg right across, strong driving action, hips forward. This time, Almeida of Portugal, and again, two feints, not quite enough pull for full ippon. There's the first, second, and then across. Not quite enough pull for the ippon. In this particular example, in the 1993 World Championships, what Udo calls multiple feints, and then the big one. All the time, leg going up as if he's going to come across for the Osoto. Two reasons. One, to stop that, and the second one, to get his stance changed. And then, leg comes across, big finish, fantastic ippon. Once again, left against left. This time, again with the inside grip. Feints, gets his opponent to take the leg back. Sets his opponent up so that he can hit him for the big Taetoshi. Takes all of the power out of that left hand. Leg comes up, leg goes back, and across he comes. Good for defense and attack. That's what Udo's showing here. He's got the inside grip, takes the pressure off the lapel, but also uses it to pull hard and get that chest contact. This particular form of Seotoshi that Udo uses is against a right-handed fighter who takes the lapel in order to swing hand right over the top. As they come over the top, he turns in and takes the inside Yamarashi grip for the Seotoshi. Inside grip, takes the inside grip. His opponent's got the lapel, tries to swing the arm over the top. As he starts to swing the arm over the top, that's when he rotates through. Harai Surikamiyashi is one of Udo's most dynamic techniques. From a left-to-left situation, he bends his opponent down and then attacks the leg that's furthest back with a massive sweep. Notice how he gets a reaction from his opponent, pulls down, gets his opponent to pull back, Then, as he lifts up, he moves in towards his opponent, steps in, and a massive sweeping action, and flat on his back. Once again, Udo follows through directly into Newaza. When Udo's actually training for this technique, there's the feint, there's the sweep. Notice the direction of his feet when he's feinting for the Osoto. The direction of the technique, always very, very important. Foot facing in the direction he's going to throw. First the feint, then he changes the direction of the foot, steps in, sweeps his opponent, and over he goes. His second round match against Hernandez of Cuba in the 1996 Olympics. Huge Harai Surikomiyashi. Hernandez, Olympic medalist himself, steps in, full commitment, and turns it right at the end. This particular variation of Hizaguruma is very unusual. Against a right-handed fighter, he takes the grip round the back, almost uranage his opponent over, blocks his opponent's leg on the knee, and a huge commitment, and then turns to look where his opponent's going to land. This is the throw that he's always faking. Can he do it? The answer is, yes he can. His preference, though, is to hop it from a long way away. First of all, he hooks round with his left leg around his opponent's left knee. He travels across the body. There's the contact. Then there's the hop to get the balance and the momentum to go forward. With the left-to-left stance, this is the one that Udo says is an extreme risk Osotogari. Attacking the leg that's forward is always dangerous, this one particularly. There's always an extreme risk of being countered with the same technique. Notice how he throws the hips forwards, beyond his opponent's hips, which means he's leaning back. Now he's got to get them forwards and his head forward as well. This fantastic example against Jimmy Pedro, an extreme left-hander himself, at the 1993 Worlds, actually gets him a Wazari score. Fantastic commitment. He goes right the way round the leg and actually takes both legs away. Always dangerous, hips are forward. Both legs there going away, manages to turn Jimmy Pedro onto his back for a score. His second example, again against Jimmy Pedro, but this time gets it turned against him. This is why they call it the extreme risk Osotogari. I think because he didn't have control with that right hand, he had it turned against him. Is it worth the risk? Ouchigari is one of Udo's major rear throws. Here, left against left, he pulls with the lapel to get the back leg to step forward in order to change the angle so that he can come in for his Ouchigari. Notice the drive off the back leg and the nice line all the way down to the ground. Once again, leans on his opponent, gets a reaction, pulls on the lapel. His opponent's foot goes forward just that little bit, and then he drives off the back leg. This fine example against Petrascu of Romania in the 1990 European Championships really shows the fantastic drive that he has with that back leg. Once again, pulls down on the lapel, gets a reaction from his Romanian opponent, and then drives his opponent back. Wazari scored. On the contrary, this example, in semi-final of the World Championships against Palabetter of France, backs his opponent up all the time, wants to stay in the centre of the mat, doesn't want to back up. This time a circular movement, not the normal driving Ouchigari that he's used to. Watch him, he'll use the left hand, pull his opponent round, His opponent's trying to keep out of the red area. Pulls him round. There's the circular movement. Hooks in, drives, gets his score. Once again, follows down into Newaza. This Ouchigari, not from a traditional grip, but this time trapping the shoulder, pin all the weight on the leg that he's taking away. Hand comes over the top, traps the shoulder, still keeps a nice line. The hopping Ouchigari comes halfway between Ouchi and Uchimata. He hooks in, drives off the back leg till his opponent goes onto his back. Strong pulling action on the sleeve, driving action with the lapel, pushes off the back leg, and finishes off with a strong turn into Kesagatami. First match of the Olympic Games, what an Ouchi. Circular movement, pulls his opponent on, hooks in, and then drives 2 stabs flat on his back. This time, a hand-assisted Ouchigari takes his hand right the way over the back, almost onto the leg. Again, strong driving action off the back leg, but keeps his line, which is very important. In 1997, Udo surprised everybody by scoring 2 ippons with this particular technique in the German Championships. A little bit controversial, is it an arm lock or isn't it? He snaps the grip off, takes the wrist, swings right the way underneath his opponent and moves straight into the hold down. There he snaps the grip off, then he catches the wrist. He then takes his head right the way through, takes his opponent over. He has an alternative finish when he straightens the arm once his opponent's on the ground. He has to be careful, though, that he keeps the arm bent during the rotation throughout the technique and only apply the arm lock once his opponent has hit the ground. Tomoe-nage is not one of Udo's major techniques, but he still scores with it occasionally. From the high lapel grip, drops underneath his opponent and then swings all the way round into the Newaza. High lapel, pulls his opponent down, drops directly underneath with his left leg, and then spins round on top of his opponent. He managed to score with this in the quarter-final of the Olympic Games against Almeida of Portugal. Drops underneath, almost Sumigaeshi. Keeps control all the way over. Good score. Udo likes to stay in the middle of the contest area because he has such strong Newaza. If he has to fight at the edge, then what he does is get a reaction off his opponent, and Ouchigari is the ideal technique. His opponent tries to stay out of the red, pushes against Udo. The Ouchigari is there. Once again against Carabetta of France. And Carabetta, well, he doesn't want to go onto the edge. Now we get that same circular movement now for that Ouchigari, all from the edge play. Backs Carabetta up. Doesn't want Carabetta to come out of there. Circles round. As soon as Carabetta now starts to come out of the edge, ideal for the Ouchigari and the strong driving action. If Udo finds his opponent backed up to the extreme edge of the area, then he likes to get a complete reaction from his opponent, which is perfect for his Harai Surikomiyashi. Notice how his opponent really pushes, tries to stay within the area, And notice how the technique comes right back into the area. Most of Udo's major competition techniques are linked in with Kouchi-gari. This particular variation is a basic variation where his opponent steps forward and Udo sweeps the leg away. Notice the drive with the lapel and the line that Udo keeps until his opponent has hit the floor. Again, leaning on his opponent, pulls him towards him, sweeps the leg away. This time from a different angle. Once again, pulls his opponent towards, hooks the leg and drives off the back leg. He uses the sleeve and the lapel to pin his opponent's weight over the leg he takes away. This is Udo's favourite form of Kouchi-gari, off the one hand. Gives him the opportunity to manoeuvre his opponent, pulls him round in a circular movement. As soon as his weight's on that leg, takes it away, almost hand-assisted, but not quite. What a wonderful competition example that is against Lorenzo of Spain at the Barcelona Olympics. Watch the circular movement and then the drive and the catch. Superb. This leg grab assisted Kouchi-gari is again one of his favourites. This is the logical extension of the one-handed Kouchi-gari. Notice the drive and the catch on the knee with the hand. Here you can see the hand catches round the knee, the drive from the back leg and the push forward. This competition example against Fagan of Australia in the '93 World Championships clearly shows the drive and the catch of the leg with the hand. Watch the circular movement, flicks the foot towards him, catches the leg behind the knee, drives back onto his back for a Yuko scored. Kouchi-gari then as a counter. From a very strong Kosoto-gari attack, Udo hooks on the inside of his opponent's leg, drives him backwards. Hooking on the inside, strong driving action, good score. And this, the final of the 1995 World Championships. Strong Kosoto, but well countered there. One of the greatest moments of Udo Kolmos's career. The reigning world champion, Nakamura, has scored so many times with that Kosoto, but this time he has it countered and a perfect ippon scored. One of the greatest judo men in the world. There it is again. Has it stopped, hooks onto the inside, drives back, almost gets countered, manages to turn it to his advantage. The final then of the World Championships in 1991 against Okuma of Japan. This time we see Udo absolutely dominates his opponent, hits with the Kouchi all the time, breaking his balance, trying to make him passive. It's almost as if he's using it as a battering ram, wear his opponent down, and to make him passive. Pulls his head down, both on Ishido at this stage, wants to make him passive. So the Japanese pulls away, he doesn't like it there, and he gets penalised up to Chui. So now all he has to do is stay busy. Still wants that grip, wants to hit one-handed. Oh, Ashiwaza there, straight down into the Newaza situation. So quick there with the follow-through into Newaza. He really does show how confident he is in this situation. Looking for the groundwork situation, looking for his arm lock, looking for his strangle. And the time's just ticking away. Can he get the leg out in time? He's quite willing just to let the time tick. And there it is, world champion. His first World Championship win. Now, the most important contest of Udo Qualmals' life, the final of the Olympic Games. And there's the Kouchi again, the deciding factor to the whole match. One-handed, moves across, takes the leg, hand-assisted, and he wins the title from that Kouchi, Gary. He's Olympic champion. He was world champion in 1991, world champion 1995, Olympic champion 1996. Quite simply, Udo Qualmals is the greatest lightweight fighter that the West has ever produced.